Hey, how you doing? This is RJ. So, if you came here today in hopes that I might say something profound, I think you're out of luck. Because today I'm going to rant. And I'm going to rant about heroes once again. And I'm going to do this for two separate reasons. Number one, I kind of want to do a more positive video than the ones that I've been doing lately. And number two, I got a comment on one of my 10-second comic reviews that just summed up perfectly within one line what is going on with the comic industry. And this comment was on my review of Shadow of the Batgirl. And it said this: DC Comics is now making comics about girls dressing up and pretending to be superheroes rather than actually being superheroes. And I gotta say, that is the best one-line summary that I have come across about what is going on with the comic industry today. And I would say it's not just DC, it's Marvel as well, certainly Marvel as well. And to give you my take on that statement, I would say that they are presenting in comics these people who are pretending to be superheroes because they want the readers to pretend to be superheroes. This is exactly what is killing the idea of hero altogether. And here's why. If you look at a story that is truly a story, with a hero that is truly a hero, what is the purpose of this story? Well, I would say the purpose of the story is to make you feel heroic and to teach you a little bit about what heroism is so that you can implement that within your life and become just a little closer to being a hero yourself. That, I would say, is the true purpose of a story with a true hero. Now, what do I base that assertion upon? Well, I would base it upon the fact that the traditional idea of what a story is, at the very least in Western civilization, has been handed down to us for thousands of years. And the best description of what a story is was given by Aristotle in 400 BC. So we're talking 2,400 years ago. And while that definition of what a story actually is may have been more intense and less intense during the intervening 2,400 years, it was and continues to still be the definition of how a story actually works. I think it's funny because sometimes I go and look at these books about how to write a story, and a lot of these people, all they're doing is rephrasing what Aristotle said in a way that modern people can understand it better. But they're saying the exact same thing. They're taking that exact same structure from Aristotle, and they're just writing entire books about it and saying, this is how you write a good modern story, when it's actually been the way that you've written a story for more than 2,000 years. And that definition of how to write a story is to make it a representation of reality. It is a representation of reality. And Aristotle would say that the reason why we do this is because as human beings, we are imitative learners. And not only that, but it harkens back to a kind of imitative learning that was almost childlike. Because when we were all little children, the primary way which we learned things was through imitation. And that imitation and imitative learning had a sense of exploration and wonder about it. And so a story that represents reality, but represents it in broad strokes, just harkens back to that imitative learning as a little child, when we were learning by exploration, when things were fun, when things were wondrous. And this is why we love stories so. But at the same time, we are learning something. Because this is a representation of reality, and we are learning something about reality when the story is a traditional kind of story. And if you add a traditional hero to that mix in that story, you are learning about a hero and how to become a hero within your own life. And the great thing about these stories is it doesn't matter who you are, you can still connect to them. You know what? I want to restate that, just to show these quote-unquote progressive types exactly what I'm talking about. If you have a traditional story, you are speaking to something that is in the heart of a human being. It is part of their human nature, and it does not matter what color your skin is. It does not matter what race you are. It does not matter what genitalia you have. It does not matter where you were born. It does not matter what physical abilities or inabilities that you have. You are still a human being, and you can still connect to those ideas of heroism because they are fundamental to what a human being actually is. And so it doesn't matter who you are or what condition you are in. When you read these kinds of stories, something gets moved deep within you and you want to be a better person. You want to be a hero like that hero that you are reading about. You want to be heroic in your own life. You want to be just. You want to be courageous. You want to temper yourself with these virtues. You want to take yourself in that condition you're in right now, no matter what that condition is. You want to take that slag piece of iron that you are at present, and you want to pound on it with the hammer of virtue, and so temper yourself so that you can become courageous, so that you can become just, so that even if it's in a small way and just for you or just for the people around you, you want to be a hero. But here's my point in all of that. If you want to be a hero, if you read these stories and want to be heroic like these stories are actually showing you, well, the traditional idea of what a hero is that you're reading about is a paragon of virtue. And again, as I'm always saying, those virtues are of a very specific number and a very specific order. They are prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance. And you can't have one without having the preceding one. That is to say, you can't have temperance unless you have fortitude. You can't have fortitude unless you're just. You can't be just unless you're prudent. And so if you want to temper yourself so that you can become this hero within your own life, before that, you need to be courageous. Before that, you need to be just. Before that, you need to be prudent. And what is prudence? Well, it's correct decision making. That is to say, it is an action. It is doing. It is not sitting on the sidelines, it is doing something. And it spreads itself down among the other virtues, and they all become action which you must embrace within your life. And what is prudence dependent upon? Well, it's dependent upon right reason. That is to say, using your reason to see reality as it actually is. But what do these stories do today that we see within comics? And not just within comics, but within almost every media that we see out there in the world today. They are not moving these people towards action. They're moving these people to want to play pretend and to play dress up. And I'm not joking when I say that. If you look at something like Marvel's Twitter site and Marvel's actual site, if you're someone who frequents those two corners of the internet, and I do so in order to keep up with all of this nonsense that is going on right now, but if you are familiar with those two sites, you will know that at times a full third of their content is concentrated on things like cosplay. They have entire web shows about it. At every Comic-Con, it is one of the things that they focus on. And if you listen to the podcast of the second in command at Marvel Comics, it is rare that you will get through one of those episodes without hearing something about cosplay. And this affects all of your comics, by the way, because the reason why a lot of these artists are using such horrible art for characters in horrible uniforms is because those uniforms were specifically designed by Marvel's fashion department in order for people to be able to cosplay these characters within real life. And so it's about pretend. Now, I suppose if you want to cosplay and go dress up as your favorite superhero, you can go and do so. But you can't make that the be-all and end-all of what these books are about. And that is what is going on right now. And that's why you continue to read stories where you have people in the story simply dressing up and acting as if they were a superhero, not actually being a superhero or a hero of any kind. Why? Because they want the reader to imitate that exact thing. They want the reader to dress up and play pretend. And playing pretend is the antithesis. It is the polar opposite of what heroism needs to flourish. Heroism needs reality and needs you to, first of all, understand what reality looks like in its cold, hard form so that you can make correct decisions based upon a correct understanding of what reality is. But of course, a reasoned understanding of what reality actually is the farthest thing from what these quote-unquote progressive types want you to do. Just to give you an example from that book that I was talking about, Shadow of the Batgirl. It was a 200-page graphic novel that was painful to get through, but I read the entire thing. And the story was about Cassandra Cain when she was about, I'd say, 13 years old, and even at that time, she was a trained assassin and could take down a full room full of armed men by herself. And yet, This is not what they focused on. This is not her superpower. This is not what the story revolves around, or what makes her special in the eyes of this story. And so they don't take that and pull any heroism out of it at all. The central focus of this entire book and her power that they want you to see is that she can understand the feelings of others. And no, I'm not joking. They go over this time and time again. It's all about feelings. It's all about the fact that she can understand the feelings of others. Because, of course, this kind of ideology wants you to abandon reason and only use feelings to, quote-unquote, understand anything. This is subjectivity. This is the nature of subjectivity, and subjectivity is the opposite of objectivity and destroys both your reason and your ability to understand and see reality as it actually is. And I would say in part, that is what these stories are meant to do. Wherein you have a traditional hero story, it is meant to touch something deep within you. It is meant to stir something deep within your human nature into action, into movement. But these kinds of comics and stories that you see within comics today, they are there for the exact opposite. They are there to take up your time. They are there to push you towards playing pretend. They are there to take you away from the ability to understand reality as it actually is. And why? Because they don't want these people to act. They want them to be sheep who follow. And I gotta say, there is one saving grace of all of this stuff that is happening right now. And it's a phrase that has gotten into popular culture. And it is the simple 2 words of virtue signaling. This is exactly what these people do. This is exactly what they promote. Virtue signaling. Because it's not virtue at all. What they do has no action towards it and has no connection with reality. Therefore, it is not true virtue. True virtue is an action. True virtue is based upon reality and a correct understanding of what reality is. But virtue signaling is simply pretending to actually do something, pretending to actually act, pretending to actually be a good person or do something right. And if I was to describe the end position that all of this leads to, I would be looking at a person who is something like these people who produce these comics and these stories. These people who seem to be nothing more than a confused husk of a human being. They simply cannot even understand the most basic things about their own actions and their own lives. But this, thank heavens, is why all that they are doing is doomed to failure. Because while these writers and these readers are doing nothing but occupying their time with something that makes them something less every time they read or write one of these stories, you and I, who are listening to true stories, you and I, who are seeking out true heroes and trying to find stories about true heroes, you and I are using that simple form of entertainment, that simple, childlike form of exploration and learning to build up who we are, and to take step after step towards that ideal of being a hero. So, if you've made it this far into my video, thank you very much for listening to me rant. And if you like to listen to me rant, hit like, hit the shield in the lower right-hand corner of your screen to subscribe, and leave me a comment. Tell me what you think about all this. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.